when the House next resumes debate on the question, presumably later on today. We'll now proceed to statements by members. Déclaration de député, la députée de Haute.
The Honourable Member for Haute-Gaspésie, l'Amitié Matane Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, with tomorrow's federal budget, I am asking the government one last time to help communities, families from the middle class and less fortunate ones rather than big businesses and the wealthiest taxpayers. Tomorrow the government is going to renew and announce new tax measures, including income splitting that will benefit a small percentage of the wealthiest taxpayers. In total, in 2015, that will be $2.5 billion into the pockets of those who already have money, and ordinary families will have to content themselves with crumbs. Instead, the government should be reinvesting in the transportation sector. They could add a second phase to the development for private forests in Quebec, and they could promote scientific research at the Maurice Lamontagne Institute in affordable housing and have a renewal plan for the regions. We hope tomorrow that the government will focus on families that have the greatest needs and their communities.
Member for McLeod.
Thank you. So 1945, World War II had just ended, and a 16-year-old young man was looking for his way. Lawrence Rosia found his way to the Bellevue Fire Station. On April 11th, Lawrence passed away after serving the Bellevue Fire Hall for 70 years, Canada's longest-serving volunteer firefighter. It is truly an incredible achievement and one in which the community of Crowsnest Pass is extremely proud. During his time as a volunteer firefighter, Lolly, as he is affectionately known, mentored and inspired many young firefighters, instilling in them the true meaning of compassion, dedication, courage, and character. He earned the Queen's Jubilee Medal and the Fire Service Exemplary Medal for his commitment to community. He exemplified what it meant to be a volunteer, and volunteers are something our rural communities depend on. He lived his life dedicated to his faith, community, and his family. What was essential to Lawrence was ensuring those he loved knew they were loved. Lolly, I want you to know your friends, your family, and the community of Crowsnest Pass loved you. You will be missed, but your volunteer spirit lives on.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Saint-Jérôme Chamber of Commerce and Industry handed out its Zenith Prizes during its 40th anniversary gala. I want to emphasize the perseverance and leadership of businesses and community organizations in Rivière-du-Nord. Through their commitment, their innovation, determination, and the involvement of their employees, our private businesses and social economy businesses have attained their zenith. The last budgets presented by the Conservative government have uselessly given outlandish tax cuts to big businesses, and they've not reinvested this back into the economy. For once, the budget has to concentrate on small and medium-sized businesses that are the pillars of our communities and creators of 80% of new jobs. We have to support them, and this is what they need.
For Bruce Gray, Owen Sound.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past week has been a bittersweet time for the Owen Sound Attack alumni. On April 15th, former Attack coach Mike Stothers was named AHL Coach of the Year. Stothers spent 5 seasons in Owen Sound and is the winningest coach in franchise history. The day before, on April 14th, hockey lost one of its finest. Former Attack coach and Ottawa Senators assistant coach Mark Reeds sadly lost his courageous battle with cancer. Mark enjoyed an NHL career with the St. Louis Blues and Hartford Whalers. Reed spent 4 seasons as the head coach of the Attack and led the team to its first OHL championship. His success in Owen Sound caught the attention of the Senators. Reeds was respected both as a player and as a coach, and will be greatly missed by the hockey community. Both Stothers and Reeds have coached a number of players on their way to the big leagues, including Bobby Ryan, Andrew Shaw, Brad Richardson, and Wayne Simmons, 2 exemplary coaches and Attack alumni. To Mike Stothers, congratulations. Mark Reeds, thank you for the memories. Rest in peace.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, the bunker fuel oil spill in English Bay last week brought to light the devastating effect of this government's millions of dollars in cuts to marine safety and their bad decision to close Vancouver's Kitsilano Coast Guard base. Industry Minister insisted that the spill response to this incident was world-class, when in fact it was anything but, and in fact some of his words were later proven to be completely incorrect. The former Kitsilano Coast Guard Base Commander Fred Moxey said it would have taken them 6 minutes to respond, but instead it took the Richmond Coast Guard over 6 hours and 12 hours before the oil was actually contained. This toxic spill fouled our inner harbor and beaches in calm seas on a calm day. And yet, imagine what would have happened for a large-scale spill in a remote part of the coast. The government was totally unprepared to respond properly and failed in their duty to lead the response. Vancouver residents and marine volunteers and experts were vocally against the closure of the Kitts Coast Guard base. The Liberals would reopen it and restore services to marine safety in our area.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, last Friday I had the privilege of attending the Town of Richmond Hill's 53rd Annual Volunteer Achievement Awards ceremony. It was a wonderful celebration and occasion to thank those volunteers who went over and above in giving back so much to our community. These individuals' generous contributions of time and skills, along with their compassion and tireless dedication, are improving the lives of many in Richmond Hill and indeed all of York Region. I would like to take this opportunity to add my congratulations to this year's Volunteer Achievement Awards recipients. To individuals Sherry Caldwell, Kathy Daunton, Annalie Levo, Assad Malik, Chuck McClellan, Louise Wilson, Hao Pen Yang, and Arthur Zhu, and to the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, Toronto Centre, thank you for your outstanding service. To all volunteers in Richmond Hill and beyond, thank you for volunteering in your community and our country. We could not possibly enjoy the quality of life we do without you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne-Blainville. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to express my sadness following the death of Ms. Rachel Thibault, a citizen of Terrebonne, well known for her commitment and volunteer contributions to the community. After a long and courageous battle against cancer, Ms. Thibault passed away on March 28th, age 62. As a participant and ambassadress for the Relay for Life in Terrebonne, she knew how to make her fellow citizens aware of the battle we are fighting against cancer. As well as being highly implicated or involved in the community, she also had many accomplishments. She was an organizer of the Griffon d'Or Gala at the Caisse des Jardins de Terrebonne, as well as a businesswoman and a family woman. She never lost her positive spirit and contagious good humor. We will remember her for her perseverance, courage, and devotion. I therefore want to offer my most sincere condolences to Ms. Thibault's family and friends. Our community has lost a great woman, and we will miss her tremendously.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the success of Canada's economy and the prosperity and well-being of its communities and families depends on advancing cutting-edge science, technology, and innovation. I am proud that our government has provided more than $11 billion in new resources to support research, talent development, infrastructure, and innovative activities since 2006. In my role as Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health, I've been pleased to support the unparalleled research and development that our scientists are undertaking on a daily basis to improve the lives of Canadians for generations to come. Leading research on drugs, disease, and mental health are supported through our government's robust funding for post-secondary institutions and industry. One example, Mr. Speaker, is Triumph, which is one of the world's leading subatomic laboratories in British Columbia. Our government has been working to support organizations like these, ensuring Canada remains a global leader in science, technology, innovation within the healthcare field and beyond.
The honourable member for Northumberland, Quinte West.
Mr. Speaker, on April 14th, the Minister of Transport attended my riding of Northumberland Quinte West to view the progress at the new Via train station. In addition, she also attended a Victims of Crime roundtable in Cobourg. Many stakeholders were present, including community organizations and victims who courageously shared their experiences with our justice system. I cannot share their stories here, but it was a very emotional experience. And I would like to thank all of those victims who were brave enough to participate, especially Hope Kirksley and Corey Walsh, who shared their harrowing experience with the community in order to empower more victims to report sexual abuse. I'm proud of the great progress our government has made towards changing the culture of our justice system to make it more victim-focused. However, if last Tuesday's roundtable has taught me one thing, there is still much work that needs to be done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, almost 5,000 people are currently converging on Rimouski for the beatification of Elizabeth Turgeon, which will be celebrated next Sunday at 2:30 at l'Église Saint-Robert-Bellarmine by the papal legate, Cardinal Angelo Amato. Among these 5,000 people, there will be a delegation of 150 people from the Lebanese community in Montreal, including the member for HoC, and I will also have the privilege of representing the riding. Arriving in Rimouski on April 3, 1875, Elizabeth Turgeon played a crucial role in the development of the regional education system, and the grade school in Rimouski that I myself attended today is is named in memory of her. She also founded the congregation of the Sœurs de Notre-Dame de Saint-Rosaire in 1879 on the site of the current Regional Museum of Rimouski. All of my congratulations to the vice postulator of the cause of Elizabeth Turgeon, Sister Rita Berube, Superior General, Sister Maria Alma-Dubé, as well as the whole congregation for their historic contribution, as well as the recognition of a woman who affected our whole region.
Sure. Mr. Speaker, we are proud to stand up for Canadians' rights and freedoms at home and abroad. Unfortunately, the Liberals do not agree. According to the Liberal candidate for Red Deer Lacombe, ISIL's goal, and I quote, is not international terrorism. In fact, the death cult ISIL has declared war on Canada. They have made clear that they target Canadians by name, and they have called for brutal attacks on Canadian civilians. Our goal is to degrade ISIL to the point that they no longer represent a threat to Canada, and we will not allow them to have a safe haven in Syria. Unlike the Liberals and their NDP comrades, who would prefer that we sit on the sidelines, we are taking action against this threat to Canadian and international security. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And the honourable member for Gatineau.
Since 2006, the Conservative government has focused on the dismantling, reduction, politicization, and censoring of a world-class public service. The Prime Minister stated openly,
"Once I'm through with it, I get to know it."
At Gatineau and the Outaouais, we have front row seats on this tragedy, while devoted government workers are seeing themselves gagged and crushed by a government that's asking them to always do more with much less and ignores legal and scientific opinions, all at the same time as they're singing the praises of this government through thinly disguised political advertising. It's impressive to see the zeal with which the government attacks people who've spent their lives in their service and in the service of Canadians. It will be even more impressive to see to what degree they'll return the favor when it's time to decide their fate. My NDP colleagues and I will stand proudly at their sides before, during, and after this battle because we believe in a more fair, more generous, and freer society. Thank you.
The honourable member for Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians in Mississauga South know that they can count on this Conservative government to keep taxes low and provide support to hardworking families. They also know that both the NDP and the Liberals, if given the chance, would raise taxes and increase the bureaucracy. Our low tax plan for families is opposed by both the NDP and the Liberals.
Shame.
They oppose our family tax cut and enhanced universal childcare benefit, which will add $60 per month per child under 18 years of age. Our plan is helping 100% of families with kids and putting almost $2,000 back in the pocket of a family with 2 children. I am eagerly anticipating what further support the Minister of Finance has for Canadian families in tomorrow's budgets, and so are my constituents in Mississauga South.
Honourable member for Etobicoke North.
Speaker, today is Equal Pay Day in Ontario, a time to highlight that women generally earn less than men, that reduced pay hurts families and the economy, that solutions are needed to end the gender wage gap, and that we need Equal Pay Day in Canada. Canadian women have been fighting for pay equity for 100 years, yet the gap in income between men and women still remains at 19%. According to the Conference Board, Canada ties with the United States for 11th spot out of 17 peer countries and earns a C grade. A Royal Bank of Canada report estimates the lost income potential of Canadian women due to the wage gap at $126 billion annually. It is time that the full value of women's skills and contribution to the labour force is recognized, the injustice of wage discrimination is acknowledged, and efforts taken to achieve equal pay.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, Canada recognizes the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine and will never recognize the illegal occupation of Crimea. Last week, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defence announced that Canada will be deploying approximately 200 Canadian Armed Forces personnel to Ukraine to develop and deliver military training and capacity building programs for Ukrainian forces personnel. This Canadian military contribution will help Ukrainian forces personnel to better defend their country against Putin's continued aggression. As the Prime Minister has said, whatever difficulties may lie ahead, whatever actions are taken by those who threaten Ukraine's freedom, Ukraine will never be alone because Ukraine can count on Canada.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for Newton North Delta.
Last week, the Minister of Employment and Social Development tweeted that hundreds of millions of families in Canada are at risk of not getting money because they don't know about a tax credit. Mr. Speaker, the fact is Canada's population is about 35.5 million. We know that Conservative ministers struggle with numbers. The previous employment minister thought Kijiji was a legitimate source for a job vacancy data, but this recent blunder surprised even those with the lowest expectations. Perhaps now we can convince Conservatives to bring back the long-form census, even if it is just to save them from themselves. And the real numbers show that after a decade of Conservative mismanagement, middle-class families are working harder but falling further behind. Canadians are ready to replace this Conservative government and repair the damage they have done, and that is precisely what New Democrats intend to do.
The honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are not ready to replace this Conservative government. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that they can count on this Conservative government to keep taxes low and provide support to hard-working families. They also know that both the NDP and the Liberals, if given the chance, would raise taxes and increase the bureaucracy. Our low plan for families is opposed by both the NDP and the Liberals. They oppose our family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit. Our plan is helping 100% of families with children and putting almost $2,000 back in their pocket. Mr. Speaker, families and businesses in my riding of Sault Ste. Marie are eagerly anticipating what further support the Minister of Finance has for Canadian families in tomorrow's budget, and I know they will be well pleased.
Hear, hear.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are getting ready to table their budget, and meanwhile, Canadian families know not to expect very much from this government. This government prefers to reward its well-connected cronies rather than help the middle class, which is struggling to make ends meet. But it's not too late. Will the Conservatives take this opportunity to get their priorities straight and table a budget that helps families? The Honourable Minister of State.
Member will have to wait until tomorrow for the budget, for the specifics of the budget, but I can assure you that we will fulfill our promise, the promise that we've made to Canadians by balancing the budget, creating jobs, creating economic growth, and keeping taxes low. We will build on our tax plan for Canada's economy that has created 1.2 million net new jobs. We're proud of a plan that's working, Mr. Speaker. $6,600 to families this year, to the average family of four. But the opposition would raise taxes. The opposition would set working families back, Mr. Speaker. Canadians know they're better off with this concern.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Harder than ever, yet falling further behind. The Conservatives are still more focused on the well-connected than on the well-being of middle-class Canadians. If you're an insider or one of the wealthy few, well, tomorrow's budget will have billions in loopholes and handouts But if you are a regular Canadian trying to make ends meet, you'll get more cuts to services. Will the Conservatives change course and commit to real action to create jobs and make life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, make no mistake, while the global economy remains fragile and we've seen the drop of oil prices, our government is focused on creating jobs, lowering taxes, and providing benefits directly back to those families. Since the depth of the global recession, 1.2 million net new jobs have been created. 90% full-time, 80% in the private sector, and 2/3 of those jobs, Mr. Speaker, in high-wage industries. But the Liberals in the New Democratic Party would reverse those plans. A $20 billion carbon tax that the New Democrats talk about will cost.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the Crown in the Mike Duffy trial alleges that the senator was never eligible to sit in the Senate. His presence was fraudulent from the beginning. Yet the Prime Minister told this House that all senators meet the residency requirements. Is the Prime Minister still of the belief that Mike Duffy conformed to Senate constitutional requirements when he appointed Mr. Duffy to the Senate in 2008?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the constitutional practice on this, of course, has been clear for over 150 years, Mr. Speaker. What's also very clear to Canadians is the fact that you can't use House of Commons resources for partisan political purposes, Mr. Speaker. That's why I encourage the NDP, the 68 members of the NDP caucus who owe Canadian taxpayers $2.7 million for illegal offices, Mr. Speaker, to pay it back, and the Leader of the Opposition could show some leadership by repaying the $400,000 that he personally owes taxpayers for illegal offices.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
The member is confused again. We're not talking about fake allegations from a Conservative kangaroo court. We're talking about a real criminal trial with a real judge.
On February 27, 2013, the Prime Minister stated in the House, quote, "All senators conform to the residency requirements. That is the basis on which they are appointed to the Senate." Why did the Prime Minister give the House this assurance when it was clearly not the case? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. As I've said before, the rules have been clear for 150 years.
You can't use House of Commons resources for partisan political activities like the NDP did. Now, the Leader of the Opposition, he signed off on employees working in Ottawa, suggesting they were working and living in Ottawa, but actually they were working in an illegal partisan office in Montreal. Mr. Speaker, the member for Scarborough Southwest thought this was so impressive that as opposed to giving $140,000 in resources to his community, he funneled it to an illegal office in Montreal.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
What's clear, Mr. Speaker, is they've messed up on the Senate, but they have really messed up on marine safety. The completely inadequate response to the fuel spill in English Bay has made it clear that this government does not have the capacity to respond to spills properly. Now, Conservative cuts to marine safety and environmental protection are putting the public, our environment, and our economy at risk. This should be a wake-up call, and they should be listening to British Columbians. Very simple question. Will the Conservatives reverse cuts to marine safety and move now to reopen the Kitsilano Coast Guard Station?
Of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Canadian Coast Guard on their excellent work in cleaning up the spill in a short period of time, responding to it. And the reason why I say this, Mr. Speaker, is I think it's important for the House to realize and remember that for the past 20 years, it is the ship transiting Canadian waters that is ultimately fully responsible for their own pollution and has a contract with responsible organizations to clean up that spill. When the spill was not identified, it was the Canadian Coast Guard that came in to do what needed to be done in an excellent way.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' balanced budget law is a phony gimmick.
It was the Conservatives who inherited a $13 billion surplus, spent us into deficit even before the 2008 downturn, then gave us 7 deficits, adding $160 billion to the national debt. Now, the law only applies outside of recessions. So we haven't been in a recession since May of 2009. So will the Conservative ministers agree to make the law retroactive and return 5% of their salaries over the last 6 years to Canadian taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member referenced the balanced budget legislation. Canadians understand the importance of living within their means, and Mr. Speaker, they expect that governments will do the same. Balanced budgets keep taxes low and ensure that government services are sustained over the long term. We will introduce legislation regarding balanced budget. Our government is committed to balanced budgets, and Mr. Speaker, the good news is tomorrow Canadians will see the Finance Minister stand and deliver a balanced budget that will create jobs, and Mr. Speaker, Canadians know they're better off with this Conservative government.
The Honourable Member for King's Hands.
Speaker, doubling the TFSA limit is just another Conservative tax break for the rich. Most middle-class families can't make use of that extra limit. In fact, very few middle-class families have an extra $20,000 kicking around every year to invest in their TFSAs. But wealthy Canadians can. And in time, doubling the TFSA limit will give billions more to the wealthy. Why are the Conservatives making middle-class Canadians who are struggling pay for tax breaks for the rich?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the Liberal Party wants to raise taxes on families and force every Canadian to pay more tax to finance these liberal spending schemes. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to let that happen. You don't have to take my word for it. Let me read a quote. Liberals believe that Canadians will not be bothered by being taxed more, Mr. Speaker. Who said that? The honourable member from King's Hands. Mr. Speaker, we get it. Canadians get it. They're better off with this Conservative government.
The honourable member for King's Hands.
Mr. Speaker, when given the choice between being consistent and being right, I choose to be right. And the fact is that Liberal governments actually cut taxes and actually paid down the debt. This government has actually raised taxes on middle-class Canadian families and at the same time has increased the debt. Mr. Speaker, a lot of young Canadians are having trouble finding jobs. One NHL Economic Action Plan ad run by the Conservatives would pay for 32 summer jobs for young Canadians. Why won't the Conservatives cut their partisan advertising that is wasting millions of dollars and help young Canadians find work?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' only plan for students is to raise their taxes. When students come, actually, the member across the way claims that students don't pay taxes. Apparently, they're not aware of the thousands of hardworking young people who work all the time to make ends meet, Mr. Speaker. We're lowering their taxes as well. We've lifted the amount of money they can earn tax-free. We've lowered payroll taxes so that when they earn wages, they keep more of what they earn, and their employers can hire them, Mr. Speaker. That's why we've created 1.2 million net new jobs, with 90% of them being full-time and 2/3 in high-wage sectors. We're going to continue to cut.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. If there was anyone in the Conservatives' ranks who was popular enough to get a $90,000 check from the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to cover up his bogus expense claims, it was Mike Duffy. 74 members took advantage of the Senator's travel privileges to have Mike Duffy lend a hand in their fundraisers. The Prime Minister made a point of personally thanking him, calling him his hardest working appointment ever. What did the Prime Minister like so much about Mike Duffy's work?
I'll just remind members that questions should touch on the administrative responsibilities as questions. I don't know if the Honourable Prime Minister wants to answer it or not, but I see him rising, so I'll allow him to do so.
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Speaker. Touching on the administration of the House, I think is very important. That's why there are 68 members of the NDP who owe taxpayers $2.7 million for illegal offices, Mr. Speaker. This member herself owes over $25,000 to the taxpayer, Mr. Speaker, for these illegal offices. I suggest that member encourage the other 67 members to repay back the $2.7 million they owe taxpayers.
The honourable member for Timmins, James May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Canadian taxpayers certainly didn't get much value out of Mike Duffy's time as a senator, but at least 74 Conservative MPs did very well. You didn't even have to be his cousin. In fact, the biggest beneficiary appears to be the Prime Minister. Now, Duffy's diaries are pretty skint on his work as a senator, but lots of details of his work as a full-time booster for the party. And since Canadian people are on the hook for this, that makes this government business. So why did the Prime Minister have Duffy traveling around the country working for the party when his job was supposed to be representing the people of Prince Edward Island? What was Duffy's special role to this Prime Minister?
I see the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary Rise to answer the question, so I'll allow him to do so. But again, I'd remind members that questions should touch on the administrative responsibilities as government.
And, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with your suggestion, I'll do just that, Mr. Speaker. Talking about taxpayers not getting value for money, I wonder what the taxpayers of Scarborough Southwest think that their members sent over $140,000 to an illegal office in Montreal, Mr. Speaker, that the member for Davenport sent over $1,000 to that same illegal office, that the member for Beaches East York did the same thing, that the former member for Trinity Spadina did the same thing. Mr. Speaker, 68 members of the NDP caucus sent millions of dollars to an illegal office, and they should pay it back.
The honourable member for Timmins, James May.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as one of the 74 MPs who called on Duffy, I see he's feeling very touchy today. But let's lower the temperature and see if he can help explain to me. I need assistance from the Prime Minister of Canada who said, quote, to Duff, thanks for being one of the best, hardest working appointments ever. Now, here's the thing. He was elected or put in to represent Prince Edward Island. He never introduced a single piece of legislation. His diary mentioned dinners 616 times, lobster dinners 24 times, his dog Chloe 47 times, but Senate business a mere 2 times. This is the business of government because Canadians are...
The honourable member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, there's always a double standard with this government. Conservative and Liberal senators have been treated to an open bar. Meanwhile, the Conservatives were axing veteran services. They cut the number of food safety inspectors. Now the Conservatives want to make $500 million worth of new cuts this year. Why are there different rules for Liberal and Conservative senators and for middle-class Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, since we've been elected, our number one priority, of course, has been the economy. That's why we put thousands of dollars back into the pockets of hard-working Canadian taxpayers, Mr. Speaker. We understand that they work hard, they play by the rules. In my riding of Oak Ridges Markham, they get up every morning, they get to work, Mr. Speaker, and what they want their government to do is put more money back in their pockets to invest in their priorities. That's why we've done that. We've increased the universal child care benefit, Mr. Speaker, to $160. We've increased and made a new commitment of $60 for children from 6 to 17, Mr. Speaker. You know what that is? That's putting more money in the pockets of Canadians while they take $2.7 million out of their pockets. We're putting it back in.
The honourable member for Saint-Lambert. Canadians are fed up with seeing Conservatives rewarding their cronies while the majority suffers cuts. In 6 years, the Conservatives have made over $45 billion in cuts to government services. They've cut Coast Guard jobs. And Canadians are lining up at Service Canada offices to get help. Will the upcoming Conservative budget make more service cuts, or will it finally support the middle class? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are helping the middle class by putting more money in their pockets. This will reduce taxes and increase benefits for childcare. Now, families will get $2,000 for each child under 16 and $700 for older children. The opposition would raise taxes on families, and we will not allow that to happen. The Honourable Minister of Rimouski-Neigette, Témiscouata-les Basques. Mr. Speaker, budgets are all about choices, and the Conservatives' priorities are clear and regrettable. They've cut support for small business, and all told, Conservatives and Liberals before them allowed 500,000 manufacturing jobs to vanish. Will the Conservatives finally invest in healthcare and job creation instead of continuing to cut services that the middle class depend on? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we are helping the middle class by reducing their taxes and putting more money in their pockets. We've created more than 1.2 million new well-paid jobs for Canadians with our action plan. And that includes support for apprentices. We've created more than 500,000 new subsidies for young apprentices, and that will enable them to work in high-demand jobs. It will create good jobs, real jobs for the middle class, and real opportunities for people.
Well, Mr. Speaker, far too many Canadian families are struggling to make ends meet while job losses keep mounting. Under this government, we've lost more than 400,000 good manufacturing jobs, but now they say they're going to have a deathbed conversion to manufacturing in this budget. But their actions speak louder than their words. These job losses have affected Canadian families who depend on them to pay the bills, to send their kids to school. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Conservatives reverse their trend of neglect and invest in Canadian manufacturing to create and preserve good Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP and Liberals only have one plan for jobs, and that is to raise taxes on those who create them. Our plan is trade, training, and tax cuts. For example, on trade, the Prime Minister recently announced that our trade agreement with Europe will allow Honda Canada to export vehicles directly to Europe for the very first time, creating 400 jobs in the manufacturing sector. Or there's Mr. Sierra, who owns Nova Plastics, a small businessman who is going to create an extra 3 jobs for engineers because he will be sending his aluminum products to Europe because of the Prime Minister's free trade agreement.
The Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
I guess after they've lost 400,000 manufacturing jobs, any small job creation is a celebration for the Conservatives. Budgets are about making choices, and Conservatives are once again putting their own self-interest ahead of middle-class Canadians. Conservatives are planning billions of dollars in handouts to the wealthiest, a $700 million tax loophole for CEOs, and yet telling ordinary Canadians that after years of painful cuts, they're going to have to settle for less. Less food safety, less rail safety, less money to stop oil spills, and no money to help parents find affordable childcare. So if this is all about making choices, why are the Conservatives choosing as their first priority helping out wealthy Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Speaker, I'm not surprised to see the NDP turning its nose up at a small business that's trying to create jobs for Canadians. Mr. Sierra, in fact, said the fact that we are eliminating the 10% tariff that Europe used to have on imported aluminum goods is going to allow him to hire 3 new engineers. That is just 3 examples of the 1.2 million net new jobs that our low-tax plan has created. These are real human beings who got the phone call, and on the other end of the line, someone said, "Congratulations, you got the job."
That's right. The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Coquitlam.
The Auditor General has been clear. The government is not prepared to deal with even moderately sized oil spills. But the Conservatives keep cutting the organizations that respond to these emergencies, including the Kitsilano Coast Guard Station, BC's Oil Spill Environmental Response Centre, and Coast Guard Communication Centres. The recent Vancouver oil spill should be a wake-up call. Will the Conservatives repair the damage they have done and restore these critical services?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Coast Guard experts have been crystal clear that there's no change in our Coast Guard response. The Kitsilano Station was not an environmental response station and never provided these types of environmental response operations. Mr. Speaker, as the Assistant Commissioner of the Canadian Coast Guard has stated, the Kitsilano Station would not have made any difference to the response of the Maratha League. The proper responder was tasked in this situation.
The honourable member for Westmount Ville-Marie.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are further lightening the tax load on the rich. Income splitting, a $2 billion tax break, will benefit the wealthy disproportionately. And now the Conservatives are fixing to double the TFSA limit. Most middle-class Canadians can't take advantage of this. They're having a hard enough time just making ends meet. Why aren't the Conservatives helping the middle class? Why hand out tax breaks, new tax breaks to the rich? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, our tax cuts for families with income splitting will help families, will put more money in their pockets, but the Liberals would raise taxes on those same families. They would also take income splitting away from seniors. And now they say they would get rid of the TFSA, which would increase taxes for 9 million families. It would threaten their savings for retirement. Only the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, can be trusted to help Canadians by lowering their taxes. The Honourable Member for Westmount Ville-Marie. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister inform the House, beyond mere discussions among officials, whether the government has officially struck a deal with Quebec on the implementation of changes made in June to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program? Apparently these changes, announced April 2nd, will kick in unilaterally in Quebec on April 30th. As you know, Mr. Speaker, there's a Canada-Quebec Accord on immigration. Have the principles of that accord been complied with? Mr. Speaker, we keep all our commitments, and the rules for the Temporary Foreign Worker Program will apply all across the country in each and every province. The Liberals want to raise employment taxes that will discourage job creation. Mr. Speaker, we want Canadians to have jobs, and we want all available jobs to go to Canadians. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, 2,700. What's going on? Get up, Eddie.
Order. Order. Is the honourable member for Vancouver Centre waiting for others to come to order before she'll ask her question? Okay, the chair is somewhat amused by that, but the honourable member for Vancouver Centre can now have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, 2,700 litres of toxic bunker fuel was spilled in English Bay. Despite 9/11 calls from boaters, the Coast Guard took 5 hours to respond, 11 hours to find the source and contain it, and 12 hours to notify the City of Vancouver. The closed Kitts Coast Guard base could have responded in 6 minutes. This government cut 34% from marine search and rescue communications and resources. Now, fisheries in Stanley Park Beach is closed indefinitely. Will this government reverse their cuts and reopen Kitts Coast Guard Station immediately?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have improved our ability to respond to these events, including new funding, new tools, and ensuring that companies responsible are the ones who pay. Under our government, investment in the Canadian Coast Guard has increased by 27%, Mr. Speaker, but the Liberals wouldn't understand that.
No, they wouldn't.
I can assure you there will be a full review of this incident, including the response, and we'll wait for all the facts to be known instead of speculating about what happened.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, following the tragic death of Sergeant Edouard Ho in Iraq on March 6, 2015, 3 separate investigations were launched. The Globe and Mail learned recently that the investigation on the circumstances surrounding his death was complete. This information comes from an interpreter who works on contract for D&D in northern Iraq. Can the Minister confirm this information and tell us when the conclusions of the report on the death of Sergeant Doiron will be made public? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her question. I can say that there are 2 investigations, internal Canadian investigations, one being conducted
in military investigation services leading one of the inquiries, and the other is being done by the Canadian Special Operations Forces Command. And as soon as I have received both of those reports, I will be happy to render all aspects of those reports public that would not affect operational effectiveness.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, last month the Chief of Defence Staff told the Canadian press that the U.S. would be, quote, leading their own investigation into the death of Sergeant Doiron in Iraq. But the combined U.S. Joint Task Force has now told the Globe and Mail that they're, quote, not conducting a separate or concurrent investigation, and details about Canada's own investigation are scanty. Can the Minister tell the House exactly who is doing an investigation into the death of Sergeant Doiron? When will we have the results, and why isn't there a board of inquiry?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
I thank the member for the question about this very tragic friendly fire incident, Mr. Speaker. The National Investigation Service, which is operated by the Canadian Armed Forces Military Police, has conducted an inquiry and is conducting an inquiry. We've not yet received the report. And there's another inquiry being done by the Canadian Special Operations Force Command. And I do intend to release those aspects of these reports that don't bear on confidential military operations. And the CDS informed me this morning that he had received a summary of a U.S. report as well.
The Honourable Member for Secunda-Waterford. Mr. Speaker, Canadians in Halifax, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Windsor, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Vancouver and Victoria, and many other communities gathered together this weekend with one common goal: to urge this government to stop Bill C-51 from becoming law. They recognize that this legislation will be ineffective, dangerous, and that it undermines Canadian rights and freedoms. Why doesn't this minister listen to them and withdraw this legislation?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know they can count on our government to keep them safe. That's why we are bringing tools to make sure that our police officers have the tool they need to keep Canadians safe, Mr. Speaker. We are of the view, Mr. Speaker, of that witness who came into committee and said legislation is important to combat radicalization. We need better tools to track jihadists who travel overseas. Ms. Rahil Raza, she's the president of Muslim Facing Tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. We share her views and we will deliver. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. The Conservatives finally succeeded in achieving unanimity across the country, this time in opposition to their bill on anti-terrorism. In cities like Calgary, Edmonton, Halifax, Vancouver and Ottawa, thousands of people came together to protest Bill C-51. First Nations, unions, experts from all horizons are telling the Conservatives that the bill is unnecessary and dangerous. What is the minister waiting for to listen to Canadians and to make the necessary decision to abandon C-51? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague that our government will continue to take responsible steps to fight terrorism. For example, to prevent terrorists from taking aircraft, to deal with radicalization and to shut down sites that are promoting terrorism. These are common sense measures that have the support of people like the sister of Patrice Vincent, who came here to call on all parliamentarians to take a stand and to protect Canadians against terrorism.
Honourable Member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are very concerned at reports coming out of Montreal that 2 ISIS-inspired extremists have been detained for plotting to engage in terrorist activity. We all recall the horrific terrorist acts last October, where Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent and Corporal Nathan Strello lost their lives at the hands of cold-blooded jihadi terrorists. Could the Minister of Public Safety update this House on what our Conservative government is doing to combat terrorism?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Castor in Ontario for his excellent work and his important question. I also want to thank, Mr. Speaker, the work of our RCMP officer and working hand in hand with the police officer, with other agencies to keep Canadians safe, Mr. Speaker. This is a stark reminder, Mr. Speaker, that the threat is real, that we need to take action and make sure that we have the resources and the tools that are needed to keep Canadians safe. Canadians can count on the Conservative government, Mr. Speaker, to take action.
Member for Welland.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative cuts to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency are putting Canadians at risk. Inspector positions have been cut or left empty. The frequency of inspections has been reduced, and companies are now being expected to inspect themselves. Inspectors are even being asked to sign certificates for products they haven't inspected. And this is just the beginning. There are more cuts to come. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Conservatives finally take food safety seriously, stop the cuts, and immediately restore the number of food inspectors we need in this country?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's very important to note that the Conference Board of Canada rates our food safety system #1 out of 17 OECD countries. In 2014, we hired more than 200 frontline inspectors, and I think I'd like to share a quote from Dr. Sylvain Charlebois from the University of Guelph, who says, "Canada Food Inspection Agency's method the right way to approach inspections."
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, it's incredible. There is a shortage of inspectors in Quebec. Data gathered by the Federal Union has shown that in slaughterhouses where food is processed, where deli meats and cold cuts are produced in Montreal East, Quebec City, and Saint-Hyacinthe, are short 10 inspectors, 10 below the minimum required. And there are more cuts expected to the CFIA in tomorrow's budget. Why isn't the CFIA and food inspection a priority for this government?
Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate our commitment in 2014 Economic Action Plan for 200 more and the frontline and food safety inspectors. But let me share another quote, and this is from Dr. Stuart Smith, who's bioresource policy at the University of Saskatchewan. He says, "Canada has one of the top food safety systems in the world. Other countries look to our system as a model of food safety. Food products that are available for purchase in our grocery stores are as safe as they possibly can be."
Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Several seniors groups, including CARP, are meeting today to talk about problems experienced by our seniors. A shortage of home care, a shortage of spaces in long-term care centres, the urgent need for a senior strategy. All parties were invited, but the Conservatives didn't even bother to send anyone. Why? Aren't these problems important to the Conservative government? The Honourable Minister of State.
Speaker, no other government has done so much as our government for seniors. For this morning's meeting, I was unable to attend, but I did send my staff. And then we will continue with our record support of seniors through initiatives like increasing funding to community-based projects for seniors, with both the NDP and Liberal voted against. A low tax that has helped to remove thousands of seniors from the tax rolls completely, which again both the Liberals and NDP oppose. And of course, a policy that both NDP and Liberals have wanted to repeal the pension splitting for seniors that is keeping their hard-earned money in their pockets where it belongs.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to listen and to participate in dialogue. Today, the Conservatives didn't even bother to send anyone to a major seniors event. And last week, the Conference Board of Canada warned that failure to address the democratic boom of seniors will compromise healthcare services. They also joined a growing list of organizations calling for a coordinated senior strategy. Will the Conservatives finally listen to the experts? Will there be a seniors strategy in tomorrow's budget?
The Honourable Minister of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, I was not able to attend the morning, but I sent my representative from my staff to be there. She probably overlooked that part. The largest increase for the GIS in a quarter century. billions of dollars invested in low-income seniors for seniors, income housing for seniors. The list can go on and on. Our record is we stand by seniors, and they will take away the income sweeping for our great seniors.
The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, nobody begrudges the Prime Minister looking his best. I mean, even I know nice hair is a wonderful thing. However, we learned from court that Mike Duffy paid for his makeup artist from a slush fund. Then we heard that the Prime Minister's makeup artist was paid from that same slush fund. Why did the Prime Minister's budget not pay for his makeup rather than taxpayers being stuck with that bill? And will this government conduct an immediate review of all the Prime Minister's makeup expenses and repay Canadian taxpayers for any work paid for with this dirty money?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very surprised to be getting a question about expenses from that particular member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Like, really?
40 million.
Honestly, this coming from a party that has $40 million outstanding? And some of those members there, Mr. Speaker, I know had some issues with respect to their living allowances, Mr. Speaker, and were ordered to pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I'm not sure what member that might have been over there, Mr. Speaker, but I'm sure he'll investigate that, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we don't comment on things before the court, and taxpayers did not pay any of these expenses.
The honourable member for Malpeque. I know he'll want his supplementary question to touch on the administrative areas of government, so I'll give him the floor now.
Well, I guess, Mr. Speaker, we're not getting any answers on whether or not the Prime Minister and the government is paying for the makeup of the Prime Minister. But this is all about, this goes to the Prime Minister's judgment, Mr. Speaker. First, he appointed Mike Duffy, calling him, quote, one of my best, hardest working appointments ever. Under his watch, this Prime Minister's watch, his closest staff paid $90,000 in hush money to a sitting senator and then covered it up, but only after the Prime Minister said they were good to go. The Crown Attorney just said, Mr. Speaker, this man should not have been appointed from PEI. Why was he?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the constitutional practice on this has been clear for over 150 years. Now, back to the topic, of course, of expenses and makeup, Mr. Speaker. I would suggest he turn around and look at the Liberal member of Parliament for, I think it's Mississauga, North Brampton, who, of course, was accused of charging taxpayers for makeup expenses during a campaign, Mr. Speaker. Of course, that party there is littered with individuals who have been forced to repay back. There are still members in that caucus, Mr. Speaker, who haven't even paid their campaign debt, Mr. Speaker. They're given an
Seem to have drifted a little ways off from the administrative area of government, but I see the honourable member for Northwest Territories rising, and I'm quite confident that he'll bring us back to a question period.
Mr. Speaker, a report by the chaplain for Joint Task Force North shows that there have been a significant number of deaths of Rangers and junior Rangers over the past 3 years. The Rangers shoulder the important burden of protecting our North, carrying out their duty in Canada's harshest environment. Can the Minister tell us how many of our brave Rangers have died, and what Canadian Forces mental health services are available to our eyes and ears in the North?
The Honourable Minister.
Our government has led efforts in support of the Canadian Rangers, our eyes and ears in the North. The Rangers demographic face the same health challenges that are faced by the northern communities which they represent. And our government, Mr. Speaker, has taken action to provide additional medical resources for Rangers deployed in the North. Mr. Speaker, Canadian Rangers that are injured during active duty have access to a suite of benefits and services provided by the Canadian Armed Forces, and any other health care needs is the responsibility of the provinces or the territories where they reside. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to support our Rangers in all of their needs.
The honourable member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, the Rangers need actions, not words. During the Conservatives' turn at the helm of the Arctic Council, they moved away from its mandate of research, environmental protection, and cooperation.
to one of resource exploitation and confrontation with our Arctic neighbours. The Conservatives' failed domestic northern strategy has resulted in less food security, higher costs of living, and the trampling of Aboriginal rights. When is this government going to bring in policies that actually support Northerners and not just making a few large southern companies rich?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to hosting the Arctic Council Ministerial meeting this Friday in Iqaluit. The member opposite issued a statement that misrepresents the economic situations in the North. Each year between 2010 and 2013, both the economy and the number of jobs across the North have increased. That growth has been supported by the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency in more than 900 projects that have created jobs and opportunities for Northerners. In the meantime, the opposite member from the Northwest Territories has rejected important projects that would benefit Northerners, such as the Inuvik-Tuk Highway, which supports economic development opportunities for Northerners. And this just once again shows how disconnected that member.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government knows that all families have different needs and different dynamics. That's why our universal childcare benefit provides support for every single family with a child. But incredibly, the opposition have attacked the universal childcare benefit and pledged to take it away from families. They just don't get it. They just don't understand how the UCCB is helping families. To help the opposition come to their senses, can the Minister of State for Social Development please inform this House how the universal childcare benefit is helping families? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, well, our government has been listening to Canadian families from every walk of life. And as the member from Don Valley East just said, Canadian families have a variety of needs when it comes to childcare. That includes families with older children, because older children also bear costs to their families, and it's a cost that we want to help those families with. That's why we've increased and expanded the universal childcare to include children between the ages of 7 and 17. We've also doubled the fitness tax credit, as well as introduced income splitting for families. All the while, Mr. Speaker, putting money back in the pockets of Canadian hardworking families.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through access to information, the media has uncovered a significant number of deaths of both Canadian Rangers and junior Canadian Rangers who are the eyes and ears of Canada's military in the North. While the Prime Minister continues to boast about his trips to the Arctic, he refuses to disclose information on these deaths, answer critical questions around a lack of instructors on patrol, or even allow the Canadian Rangers Patrol Group to speak out. I ask the government why the gag order on those critical issues surrounding Canada's Rangers.
The Honourable Associate Minister for National
Speaker, we are in fact the only party in this House that takes our responsibility to the Rangers and our North seriously, and we're acting on it full-blown. Mr. Speaker, Canadian Rangers injured in a line of duty are eligible for benefits and services from the Canadian military. Canadians expect no less. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to take action so the Canadian Armed Forces can defend our territorial sovereignty in the North, and count on the Rangers to continue doing the great job that they are in fact carrying out for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Quebec. Clearly, files involving Quebec City don't move very quickly when they're sitting on the desks of Conservative ministers. For the organisers of the 2017 tall ship event, the final hour has arrived, and if government funding isn't confirmed by the end of the week, the project will be dead in the water, and it won't be possible to improvise. And once again, there'll be delays, as there were for the Armoury. Will the Conservatives finally respond to these requests from Quebec City? Will Quebec finally see funding for the tall ships in tomorrow's budget? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said on several occasions here in the House, the 150th anniversary of our country will include all Canadians, including Quebecers. We've already had discussions with them, and as I said as well in the past, we've already funded on the road to 2017 a pilot project for the tall ships. We'll continue to plan are celebrations for 2017 with all Canadians from all provinces and all territories.
Mr. Speaker, today the Canadian Centre of Substance Abuse released findings from its upcoming report on marijuana use. This timely release confirms once again that smoking pot is directly linked to lower IQs, dependency, and harms the developing brain. Stats Canada also confirms that our approach to keeping pot out of the hands of kids is working. Over the past decade, usage by teens has dropped by nearly a third. Can the Parliamentary Secretary please update the House on our Conservative government's efforts to stop kids from smoking marijuana?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, marijuana is an illegal drug, and we're learning more and more about the serious and long-term health consequences. So certainly we do not support making access to illegal drugs easier. You look at the Liberal plan, who wants to make smoking marijuana an everyday normalized activity with it available in stores like alcohol and cigarettes. That will only have one effect, and that will be to increase the use of marijuana. Our Conservative government will continue to work to stop kids from smoking marijuana and the associated long-lasting effects that it will have.
The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, changes to pilotage requirements on the Great Lakes are overdue. Thunder Bay welcomes salties that come thousands of kilometers from around the world, waiting for a local pilot to go that last kilometer to our grain terminals. Let's facilitate trade, not impede it. My constituents are asking, can we get some common sense about pilotage requirements in Thunder Bay and throughout the Great Lakes?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for the question. Marine pilots are a very important part of our supply chain. They are uniquely qualified to be able to take vessels in Canada through those areas of specific water conditions and make sure that they can avoid hazards. As a result, they play an important part. The Canadian Transportation Act is currently being reviewed by a preeminent panel chaired by David Emerson. They'll be looking at the future of transportation in Canada, and I'm sure this issue will come to their attention.
Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, recent studies have shown that oil spills are going to happen even under the best conditions, especially in Placentia Bay. Last week's tardy response to the oil spill in British Columbia illustrates the serious gaps in Canadian Coast Guard oil response protocols. As the Minister is aware, increased oil tanker and low visibility in Placentia Bay makes this region particularly sensitive and high risk for an oil spill, with Coast Guard equipment days away. Can the Minister assure residents of Placentia Bay, Newfoundland, that the Coast Guard can ensure a timely and effective response time if an oil spill should occur?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the Coast Guard works closely with emergency response companies, which are certified by Transport Canada, and they're part of the response regime in Canada, both on the West Coast and on the East Coast. They do have the equipment and the expertise to respond. Response plans encompass many partners, Mr. Speaker, and these emergency response organizations are part of that plan.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, in the aftermath of the gas cartel that swindled drivers out of some $200 million, namely in central Quebec and the eastern townships, the oil company was just slapped with a $1 million fine. Without a complaint from a retailer in Victoriaville who refused to participate in the price-fixing scheme, there wouldn't have been an investigation by the Competition Bureau and charges brought because the government refuses to amend the Competition Act. Will the government finally take steps and allow the Commissioner of Competition to undertake investigations by creating an office to monitor the oil sector and by stopping to thwart the activity of those trying to undertake a class action suit against the oil companies? The Honourable Minister of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has taken steps and has adopted new legislation for the inspection of gas pumps. And, Mr. Speaker, this is my answer to your question.
That concludes question period for today. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Fazil Hadi Muslimyar, Speaker of the House of Elders of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. tabling of documents, dépôt de documents. Pursuant to Section 552 of the Canada Elections Act, I have the honor to lay upon the table the Registered Party Financial Transactions Return Form and the Registered Party Return Form in respect of general election expenses prepared by the Chief Electoral Officer.
These documents are deemed permanently referred to the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs.
Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 36.8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 92 petitions.
We'll have a... Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Rapport de délégation interparlementaire.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Member for La Salle et Mar. I am pleased to report in both table in both official languages the fifth report of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women, fifth report, Economic Leadership and Prosperity of Canada, and pursuant to Standing Order 109, the government is asking the government to respond.
Honourable Member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 104 and 114, I have the honour to present in both official languages the 35th report of the Standing Committee.
Order.